What's going on, guys? You guys want to figure out how to get an instrument rating? Here's how you do it. So after you guys acquire your private pilot rating, which I'll leave a link to the private pilot, how to get your private pilot certificate video that I created. So once you acquired your private pilot rating and you're seeking out an instrument rating. So once you've acquired your private pilot rating and you're seeking your instrument rating, you're going to have to understand that getting your instrument rating is definitely a huge plus in the scheme of things whenever, like for safety wise, whenever you do acquire your instrument rating. For example, like whenever you're a private pilot, you have to maintain cloud clearance requirements and stuff like that. Like you have to always avoid clouds. Well, obviously, whenever you get your instrument rating, you're able to fly right through a cloud layer. So, for example, if you're got to take your mom or your dad or your family, or you're trying to go meet them somewhere, and there's an overcast layer at your base airport, you can just go ahead and pop right through that, get on top, and get out of the bad weather. And obviously, with the private pilot certificate, you're not going to be able to do that. Now, my struggles during training was transitioning from being able to look outside and basically just VFR flying, always looking at trying to figure out where traffic is, learning how to try to fly off of basically VOR needles, or off of your CDI needle for your VOR all the time. Because usually after I got my private, everything was just GPS direct, GPS direct, GPS direct. Just from one point to one point, just going wherever you want to go. Now, for instrument, it doesn't always work out that way. Now, you can get GPS direct in instrument, but sometimes it's not always the smartest thing to do. Sometimes you're going to have to fly from a VOR to a VOR to another VOR to get vectors for a approach. Now, those VOR to VORs most of the time are going to be Victor Airways, which is low, which are depicted on low en route charts, which is below 18,000 feet. MSL. It's basically like the sectional for IFR. It's called the low en route chart. That was one of the hardest things transitioning for sure. The best thing for you guys to be able to study for your instrument rating is going to be, especially for the written, is going to be the ASA Prepware instrument. It's about another $10 in the App Store. You're also going to want to get the current FAR-AIM, which for me it's the 2018 Federal Aviation Regulations, and then you're going to want to get the IFH, which is the Instrument Flying Handbook. Now, these will definitely help you get prepared for your check ride, especially, like, another thing that's really good that I read through was the Instrument Oral Guide from ASA. That's going to be another really good tool to help you basically get prepared for the instrument outside of your training. So if you are trying to learn some, or figure out some better ways to kind of cut down on paper charts, you're definitely gonna want to get ForeFlight, which I have right here. You can't really see, it's not focusing very well, but that has all my approach plates on it. It's got all my low en route charts on it. It's got all my departure procedures, standard instrument departures. It's got ODPs, which are obstacle departure procedures. It's got SIDS, stars, so standard terminal arrival routes. It's got all those things all on one iPad. So, like if I wanted to pull up the VOR DME runway 32 at Waco Regional, dang, I wish you could see it, but yeah, you can just pop it right into your iPad and use that instead of having to flip through a TPP to find that approach plate. Another good thing to use is going to be SkyVector. That's a website online that you're going to be able to go onto and get preferred routes for flying IFR whenever you get to the stage where you're going to be doing cross-country planning. Definitely is a good tool to use. It'll show you like TAFs, METARs, NOTAMs. It'll show you a full blown up low en route chart, which will be really and it draws you a perfect line for the route that you'll be doing. So it's a lot better than the paper charts, and you having to draw lines on your paper charts and stuff like that. But you're gonna also have to remember that your, for example, my iPad sometimes it's hot out here in the Texas heat, and it will basically turn itself off and say, oh, the temperature's too hot, you can't use it. Now, if that happens whenever you're in actual IMC and you're trying to shoot an approach, you're going to want to have that TPP right there so you can flip right to that approach. So you'd obviously want to have some alternative use of paper charts. So like I said, I took my instrument check ride on Friday. And basically what the best tool that I use to study for, besides Prepware, the FAR AIM and the IFH, and the instrument oral exam guide, is reading through the instrument ACS, which is the instrument Airman Certification Standards. Basically, it's every question or topic that they're going to be able to ask you on your check ride. So if you master those questions on the ACS, you're not going to have to worry about a thing on your check ride because you'll know all the answers, and you'll already know everything that they're going to ask you anyways. So I had my check ride on Friday here in Waco at TSTC, Kilo Charlie November Whiskey, so I went in, did the stuff for IACRA, typed in, looked at all my total times in my logbook and stuff like that, and then we jumped into like airworthiness. We did looked at the weight and balance for the day. Then we went into my IFR cross country plan, and then I showed him how I did the plan, how I did the plan, how I was able to get the route, what some of the symbology on the low in route chart meant, and then he asked me what approaches I was planning on doing, and I showed him the approaches on my iPad, and we basically looked at those and asked me some symbology on that. Then after that, he basically told us what approaches we were going to be doing, and that he'd give me a couple minutes to look over the approaches and ask him some questions. Maybe like if we couldn't do an approach for some reason, like to go ahead and let him know. So I called the weather briefer, got the weather briefing, and then I started looking at the approaches. Basically what I did is the RNAV 19 partial panel, which means that he covers up my main vacuum gauges, which are going to be the attitude and the DG, and I had to use the secondary GPS for it as well. So I did that approach, did the published mist with a hold at Bozell intersection. Then I got vectors for the VOR DME 3.2, and then I circled a land on 1.9. And then after that, I got vectors for the ILS 1.7 left, and I got unusual attitudes along the way over to the airport. So that's basically how my check ride went. I honestly, like everyone, like for any check ride, especially if you guys are watching this after you've gotten your private, you know that check rides are definitely overhyped. Obviously, if you feel prepared, or if you know that you've got the knowledge, you're still going to feel underprepared just because you're afraid that you're going to fail the test. That's exactly how I felt. I walked in, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to pass it the first time, especially because people were telling me, oh, instrument's the hardest check ride, it's the hardest practical test. But in all reality, if you know what you're doing, you're going to do just fine. The DPE is not there to fail you. He's just basically there to make sure that you're not going to kill yourself or others whenever you're flying instrument. So that's basically all I've got for you guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.